Hey guys, I hope you are well. Welcome to Before the Scroll. Here we peel back the polished myths of history and reveal the quiet, unspoken truths. The stories are told slowly, richly, with a touch of grit, enough to carry you gently through the past and maybe into sleep. We hope you enjoy the journey, and now, let's turn back the scroll. Imagine waking up one day to find your beloved leader has declared war on the sea. This wasn't a fever dream, it was reality under Caligula. At first, Rome hailed him as a gentle savior, but within years, he'd demand to be worshipped as a god, executed allies on whims, and turned the palace into his personal nightmare. How did power twist his mind so completely? Tonight, we'll trace the invisible line between promising ruler and infamous tyrant, one chilling decision at a time. The descent wasn't sudden. It crept in like the tide he once ordered his soldiers to whip. Picture a 24-year-old Caligula riding into Rome in 37 AD. The crowds cheer so loudly you can't hear yourself think. They throw flowers at his feet, not because they have to, but because they genuinely adore him. This wasn't just political theatre. To Romans exhausted by Tiberius's paranoid reign, Caligula felt like sunlight after decades of twilight. He'd earned this goodwill early. As the son of Germanicus, Rome's most beloved general, he grew up in military camps. Soldiers nicknamed him Little Boots for the miniature army sandals he wore as a child. That childhood forged a bond with the people. He wasn't some distant aristocrat, but one of them. When Tiberius died unexpectedly, Rome didn't just accept Caligula as emperor, they demanded him. His first months in power seemed to justify the hype. He recalled exiles, abolished treason trials, and cut unpopular taxes. Ancient historians like Philo record banquets so lavish they lasted days, with the emperor personally handing out gifts to guests. The Senate, used to Tiberius's suspicion, suddenly found themselves trusted with real authority again. Even his coins told the story. One early issue showed him shaking hands with the goddess of the people. But you don't get a reputation like Caligula's without something going wrong. 8 months in, he collapsed. The fever burned so high witnesses thought he'd die. When he finally woke, his eyes had changed. Servants noticed him staring at walls. He stopped sleeping through the night, instead roaming the palace corridors, whispering to statues. The man who freed political prisoners now accused his closest friend of plotting against him and had him executed without trial. People rationalized it at first. Maybe the illness left him in pain. Maybe he'd recover. Then his sister Drusilla died suddenly, and whatever restraint remained shattered with her. The same hands that once doled out gold now clenched fists around Rome's throat. The question wasn't whether Caligula had changed. It was how much further he'd fall. In October of 37 AD, Caligula suddenly collapsed. The fever hit so fast his physicians thought someone had poisoned him. For weeks, he thrashed in delirium, his skin burning to the touch. Courtiers whispered that Tiberius's ghost had cursed him. When he finally woke, his first order was to execute his closest advisor, a man who'd reportedly cried at his bedside. Those who knew him best saw the change immediately. Before the illness, Caligula would stroll through Rome, greeting citizens. Now he paced the palace at midnight, convinced shadows moved on their own. He banished his wife on a whim, then ordered her execution halfway to her exile. Servants noticed his hands would tremble during meals, his laughter turning jagged halfway through jokes. Modern historians still debate what happened in that sick room. Some suggest encephalitis swelling pressed against his brain. Others point to temporal lobe epilepsy, the same condition that may have affected Julius Caesar. Ancient sources aren't helpful. They just note his eyes looked different after. But everyone agrees The man who emerged wasn't the same one who'd entered that fever. His sister Drusilla became the only person who could steady him. Then, in 38 AD, she died suddenly at 22. Caligula had her body moved through Rome like a goddess's procession, banning mourning on pain of death. Witnesses said he slept in her tomb for weeks, whispering to her ashes. When he returned to court, his speeches started including a new phrase, "Remember that I can do anything to anyone." The Senate meetings grew surreal. He'd appoint his horse to political offices just to watch senators applaud. Some historians claim this was testing loyalty. Others believe he truly enjoyed their humiliation. What's certain is that fear replaced respect overnight. Senators arrived at sessions wearing swords, not for revolt, but because Caligula might order them to kill themselves on the spot. By 39 AD, he stopped pretending he ruled by mortal laws. Visitors had to address him as Jupiter during audiences. He commissioned statues showing himself as various gods, ordering them placed in temples across Rome. When priests objected, he reportedly asked why gods couldn't have new colleagues. The question wasn't rhetorical. He expected an answer. If none came, the punishment was creative. One official, who hesitated too long, found himself dressed as a gladiator and forced to fight for the crowd's amusement. That was the kinder option. Caligula didn't just want power, he demanded worship. In 40 AD, he ordered his golden statue installed in the temple of Jupiter, right beside the god's own likeness. Priests had to sacrifice flamingos and peacocks to them both. When senators balked, he threatened to melt them down for the metal. This wasn't symbolic anymore. He started appearing in public, dressed as Jupiter, carrying a thunderbolt prop so heavy it took 3 slaves to carry it behind him. The theatrics escalated. That summer he marched legions to the English Channel and declared war on Neptune. Soldiers collected seashells as spoils of war, while he shouted at the waves. Back in Rome, he floated a 2-mile bridge of ships across the Bay of Baiae just to ride his horse across in full armor. Senators trudged behind his chariot in the July heat, some collapsing from exhaustion. Those who fell were dragged the rest of the way. His cruelty had a performative edge. During banquets, he'd burst into laughter for no reason, then lean over to whisper, "I'm just thinking how easy it would be to have you all killed." One afternoon, he ordered a loyal officer to commit suicide just to test obedience, then pardoned him midway through the act. The reprieve wasn't mercy. He wanted proof he could stop death itself. The Praetorian Guard noticed the shift. Where Caligula once rewarded them with bonuses, he now punished random guardsmen for imagined slights. Cassius Chaerea, a veteran officer, endured particular humiliation. The emperor mocked his high-pitched voice, forcing him to repeat lewd passwords like Venus or Priapus. Behind closed doors, Chaerea started keeping a list of grievances and allies. By January 41 AD, even casual conversations became deadly. When a butcher refused to sell him veal one morning, Caligula had the man's hands nailed to his shop doors. That same week, he interrupted a court case to personally beat the defendant unconscious with a writing tablet. The Senate stopped meeting entirely. But the real turning point came when he began joking about replacing the Praetorian officers with Germanic bodyguards. The whispers in the barracks grew louder. Chaerea's list now included half the palace staff. They planned carefully, waiting for the chaos of the Palatine Games when security would be relaxed. On January 24th, Caligula paused mid-sentence during a performance, sensing something off. He was right. The men who swore to protect him were already choosing their daggers. The morning of January 24th, 41 AD, started like any other for Caligula. He'd spent the previous night taunting his guards about their loyalty, joking that he could replace them with foreign mercenaries. By noon, he was at the Palatine Games, watching actors perform a scene about a dying tyrant. He laughed so hard at the villain's death that he missed the glances exchanged between Cassius Chaerea and the other conspirators in the back row. They struck during a lull between performances. As Caligula walked through a secluded corridor, Chaerea stepped forward with a question about the day's password. When the emperor smugly replied, "Jupiter," Chaerea drove his dagger into the ribs. At least 30 stab wounds followed from other conspirators, some so eager to participate they accidentally wounded each other. The killing took less than a minute. Rome's reaction was chaos with mixed relief. Some citizens wept, others cheered. The Senate, believing this was their moment, rushed to declare the Republic restored. Meanwhile, the Praetorian Guard panicked. Without consulting anyone, they dragged Caligula's uncle Claudius from behind a palace curtain and named him emperor on the spot. By nightfall, teams were already chiseling Caligula's name off buildings. His statues came down so fast, one toppled onto a bystander. The cleanup was brutal but sloppy. They executed his wife and infant daughter within days, smashing the child's head against a wall. But yet, they missed details. His Germanic bodyguards went on a revenge spree, killing several senators before being subdued. Some of Caligula's eccentric laws stayed on the books for years because no one remembered he'd made them. Historians still argue over the body count. The official record claims he killed thousands, but ancient Rome wasn't big on accurate bookkeeping. What's clear is that his 4-year reign permanently changed the empire. Future emperors would still be cruel, but none dared repeat his godhood demands. Even Nero, no stranger to excess, kept his divinity claims symbolic. The real legacy wasn't the madness, but the blueprint it provided. Caligula proved how easily power could be twisted when checks vanished. Rome had assumed the Republic's traditions would constrain him. Instead, he used them as props in his theatre of cruelty. When Claudius took the throne, his first act was reinstating treason trials. The lesson had been learned. Unchecked rulers don't just break systems, they reinvent them.
Caligula's story isn't really about madness. It's about what happens when power has no limits. That promising young ruler didn't start out cruel. He became cruel because no one could say no. The illness may have damaged his mind, but absolute authority warped his soul. So here's the uncomfortable question. Was Caligula insane? Or was he just the inevitable result of a system that put one man above laws, gods, and reason? Rome learned the hard way that power without restraint corrupts without exception. Sleep well. History doesn't repeat itself unless we forget the lessons of Little Boots.